So again, we are talking about this this idea how to integrate this the practice of wise reflections, shamatha, and heartfulness practice into, or at least the way which works for me for integrating it in my practice, in my daily practice. Why did I want to share this? Because I always struggled with keeping all those three elements alive in my practice. But Mark and also teachers like Rosemary and Steve really stress how important it is to do all three of them and not just do one of them. Steve uses this metaphor of we are trying to build a house, and when we go to school of like building houses, we learn a lot of different tools, like we learn the hammer and the saw and like all the different tools. And if one just likes the hammer and continues to only practice the hammer, at the end, they will not be able to build a house successfully, or at least not a very elaborate house. And so without motivating any of these practices too much, there seems to be consensus among several of our teachers that it makes sense to practice them all. And I've also experienced good benefits for each of these practices, and so that's why I want to share this. And the framework is very simple. So I like to structure them by first to do them in one sit. If I only sit once per day, then I try to do them in one sit, and I start with some wise reflections, then shamatha practice, and then the heartfulness practice. And for wise reflections, basically for each of these three sections, I choose one of the various practices we have learned for doing that. So for the wise reflections, there's 5 which are recommended by Mark and Steve and Rosemary. One is reflecting on how fortunate we are. One is reflecting on suffering, that's the reflection on dukkha. Then there's the reflection on death. And then there's 2 more. There's reflecting on compassion and equanimity, and on karma, on actions and their results. And so what I do is, like, for one sit, I just pick one of them. And there's various ways, like you could pick a different one every day, or you could say, okay, this week or this period of 2 weeks I focus on how fortunate I am, and then the next 2 weeks I focus on suffering, etc. Particularly at the beginning, in case you're not so used to doing them yet, it could be a good idea to practice them for a while in order to actually get to know them better and also be able to ask questions about them. What I then afterwards, and like how long I do them depends on the sit and also how I feel on that day. So the wise reflection could be done in a few minutes, or it could be most of the practice. That's again very, very flexible. And after that, I would go on and practice shamatha. There, I usually start with the 4-step transition to the meditation object. We're also gonna do that today. And then I practice the techniques of the stage I expect to be based on last practices or how I feel. And for me, for the shamatha practice, and also to me seems one of the key elements of the Mind Illuminated, is I try to really be aware in what state my mind is right now, and then work with the according tools from DMI. So I think, so for me, this is one of the key elements of DMI, that we are given these 10 stages. And I really like describing these 10 stages as territories. And for each territory, we have different tools at our disposition, which we can use in that stage. And so it's super important to know in which territory you are in order to be able to apply the right tools. And also by doing that, I learn more about my practice, because I realized that for a long time I've been practicing and I couldn't really have told you at the end of the practice what was going on in my mind, and what stage I was and what tools I might have been able to, or have been beneficial to use. And so I think it's very important to have some awareness of what's going on. It's mind wandering, is it like gross distraction, subtle distraction or so, and then apply the right tools. For applying the right tools, obviously, it's important to know the tools, and that's why we have the courses covering the different stages of the Mind Illuminated, or you can also go to the book and read them, or ask, in any session with the community or in the Slack channel, hey, this and this is going on. Either what stage would this correspond to, because that's also not always easy, and or how could I practice given a certain territory I'm in. Exactly. And the reason why I like this description of the different stages as territories is that there is not such a linear sequence that the higher the stage, the better or something. It's just like different states in which the mind are, and I just apply the right tools. And this description of territory helped me to have a non-preference towards the states of the mind, because it's not better if my mind in this moment is at stage 5 or if it's stage 3 or stage 2 or whatever. The really important thing is to work well given those stages. If there's a preference towards having a stable mind or having a bright mind versus having a dull mind or so, then this will create aversion and hindrances, and they actually hinder the practice. So I like this mantra of non-preference towards the states in my own practice, and I think that's why I wanted to share this. So for shamatha, like monitoring which state the mind is in, and then applying the right tools, ideally having a non-preference towards the states. And then the third block would be the heartfulness practices. And here, there's there's 4 different Brahmaviharas, and the ones I usually try to practice are either compassion and loving kindness together, so compassion first and then loving kindness, or just loving kindness by itself, or empathetic joy. So these are the 3 options which I usually use. Equanimity is also a Brahmavihara, but to be honest, I don't know how to practice it yet. So that's why, there's 4, but I'm when I choose at the moment, I choose them. But if you know how to practice equanimity, if that's a thing, then of course you can also select that one. And within the Brahmaviharas, there's also different ways of doing each of these practices, because we can do the classical loving kindness towards a person or towards different people, but we could also do, I think, all of them in radiating ways. So we could radiate love in towards the front, towards the back, towards all directions, or also just in all directions. Or we could do the Tonglen version of them. So Tonglen is this practice where you breathe in the difficulties and you breathe out love, compassion, etc. And it's way beyond the scope of this session here to introduce all of them. But if you're particularly curious in one, I invite you to write that in the Slack channel, and I'm sure there is people who want to introduce them. Exactly that. I'm sure. Anyway, I invite you to do that if you're interested in that. What else? One advice Mark gave me as well is from time to time to do an entire session just with one of these things, like just wise reflection or just shamatha, just heartfulness practice. Because in particular, if the sessions are not super long, for example 40 minutes, then if you split it up and you do sometime wise reflection, sometimes shamatha, sometime the heartfulness practice, there's not so much time for each of them, and it's also beneficial to spend a full sit on one thing. So for me, what works is, I do vary a lot. Sometimes I do 2 of them, sometimes I do an entire sit, just 1 of them, sometimes I do all 3 of them. But yeah, I wanted to say this as well. Yes, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. Yes, and of course, if you practice multiple, Pat, yes, in a moment, if you practice multiple times a day, you could also use that to split it. I think for me it was just difficult because most of my life I didn't do multiple meditations in one day, and so somehow I didn't know how to combine them. Yes, happy.
I'm curious if you do, especially for the heartfulness stuff and the wise reflections, if you do it by yourself or you listen to guided ones.
Mm-hmm. I usually do them by myself, but it would definitely be an option to do guided ones, in particular also to get to know them and to get used to them. Yeah. Are there any other questions about the technique? We will have more time for questions afterwards as well. Okay, then I would say we try this in practice. So again, I recap once more. We have these 3 sections: wise reflections, shamatha, and heartfulness practice. And for each, you just pick one and you do them. And for the heartfulness practices, I wanted to share one more thing. If there is a particular hindrance or which comes up to your shamatha practice, or some repeated thoughts or whatever, like something very strong in your practice or in your shamatha practice, then of course it can be a very nice idea to work with the according Brahmavihara, with the according heartfulness practice. So for example, if there is anger, then loving kindness might be an option. If there is something where or also compassion sometimes. So there's each of the heartfulness practice is also an antidote to some hindrance or state of mind which is maybe less skillful. So you could do that. Of course, also what's super important to say, there is if there's some struggles in your life, it's also important to sort those struggles out in your life and not just meditate on them if it might be beneficial to actually change something in your life. So it's not an invitation to spiritually bypass things, but still for me, if I notice something, for example, when I have aversion against some mind state in shamatha maybe, then compassion on myself could be very good and also lead to insights how to handle this better or how to find a skillful way to work with that. Okay, then let's start with the practice. Find a comfortable seated position, upright, ideally a straight back. You can have the camera on or off depending on what you wish. And all the instructions are meant as invitations. So do take care of yourself, particularly if the camera is off. But in general, we are not in the same room, so it's on your responsibility to take care that you're well. If you feel at any point that it's too much, then feel free to just stop the practice. Take care of yourself. Okay. If you wish, you can close your eyes. They can also be open though, whatever you prefer. And I invite you to take a few deeper breaths. Okay. Feel free to check in with your body. If there is any tension, you can try to relax it. You can also move or stretch for a moment if that's what feels right for you. and just arrive in the present moment. You can imagine a little thread to be appended at the top of your head, and that it's slightly lifting you up, and then all the shoulders and the rest of the body relaxes around this spine. Spine is upright, right, and the rest of the body relaxes around it. And we start with the wise reflections, and I would invite you to reflect on how fortunate we are. Here I will say a few things you can reflect on, and you can also pick your own things you want to reflect on. You may reflect on how fortunate are we that we are in a safe place right now and able to practice. And really try to feel it, like how fortunate are we to be in a safe place in a world where many people don't feel safe where they are in the present moment. How fortunate am I to be clean in a world where many people don't have clean water to either to drink or also to clean themselves. How fortunate am I to have enough food and have healthy food available if I want it. How fortunate am I for the health I have? I might have some health struggles as well, but we are healthy enough at least to attend this session and to practice. So how fortunate are we to be in relatively good health? If in your life there are some people you feel loved by or taken care of, then that's also a very fortunate thing. How fortunate am I to have some people or to be with some people who love me, who like to take care of me. And now the big ones, the ones which for me also really fuel my motivation for practice. How fortunate am I to have encountered the Dharma? How fortunate am I to have encountered the Dharma in a world where so many people never get in touch with these wise teachings. Such a rare opportunity. And how fortunate am I to be able to practice the Dharma, to be able to take time to practice this in a world where many people can't afford or don't afford to take time for practice and to develop beneficial qualities of mind. How fortunate are we? And how fortunate are we to be able to practice the Dharma in community? How fortunate that there is a number of people like us who want to practice together and be there for each other and support each other. How fortunate are we to have born in a human body which can find the Dharma and practice the Dharma, practice as community. Feel how fortunate this is. And if it happens to motivate you for practice, that you have this rare opportunity here to practice and develop beneficial qualities of mind for yourself and for others. If you feel some motivation, drive for practicing and making use of this rare opportunity, then pay attention to that and let it fuel your motivation for practicing. How fortunate are we to have this rare opportunity? Let's use it well. Take a few more moments for holding this, what's ever present now. Maybe this wish to practice well for the benefit of ourselves and for every being. Okay. Now you may gently let go of this and become aware of the present moment as we're starting with the second part of our practice, starting the 4-step transition with the step 1, being present, allowing our attention to go anywhere in the present moment. Sounds, body sensations, if your eyes are open, sight. Allow it to roam freely, but stay aware if attention drifts away to the past or the future, planning. If that happens, gently bring it back to the present moment. The attention can be anywhere in the present moment. If the mind wanders, that's perfectly fine, just bring attention back. Okay, and now, while still allowing everything to be present, encourage your attention to go towards bodily sensations. All the sounds, whatever else is present can still be there. Just slightly, maybe lift those body sensations a little bit to the foreground without pushing anything else away. Just intend now to become more interested in the body. If the mind wanders off, just gently bring it back to the body. Maybe the attention starts already automatically to converge towards the sensation of breathing. If that's happening, that's fine. Otherwise, gently encourage more of these breath-related sensations to be in the foreground now. Anywhere you feel the breath, you might take a medium range, like between the nose, the throat, down to the rib cage and the belly. And now invite your attention to attend to any of those sensations of breathing. If the mind wanders, just gently bring it back to the sensations of breathing and intend to stay aware of what attention is doing. Is attention still with the breathing sensations or did it wander away? This awareness will help you to either not mind wander or to shorten the periods of mind wandering, to recognize it earlier. And become aware of where you feel the breath sensation clearest. Could be the nose, the throat, also the nose and the throat together, your belly. Anywhere you can feel them very clear. And for this sit, I invite you to use that as your meditation object for the Samatha practice. In my experience, it's crucial to really feel the sensations, both of the in-breath and the out-breath clearly, in order to be able to stay with them. So now pick a meditation object and invite your attention to attend to it and let all the other body sensations and breath sensations go to the background of peripheral awareness. And if you want, you can count your breath, in which you stay continuously attending to the sensations of the breath. And feel free to count until 10. So if you can feel something of the in-breath and something of the out-breath, that counts as 1. If you feel something of the next in-breath, out-breath, 2, etc. If you arrive at 10, you can either stop at 1 or continue counting a little bit longer. And if your mind wanders, or you forgot the count, then just start with 1 again. And intend to monitor your state of mind right now. Is there a lot of mind wandering, maybe monkey mind, or is there some mainly forgetting, or not even forgetting, just gross or subtle distractions, or maybe dullness? Intend to know right now, but also for the rest of the practice, what state your mind is in, and see if you can remember what tools are recommended in the Mind Illuminated for dealing with that in a skillful way. And I invite you to just do that now. And if you happen not to remember, that's of course also perfectly fine. Then just attend to the breath, and if the mind wanders, gently first be happy that you recognize the wandering, and gently bring the attention back to the breath, and intend to recognize it soon when the mind wanders again. Let you now practice for a few minutes in silence. Now gently letting go of the meditation object, we transition to the third part, and I invite you to do a compassionate loving-kindness practice. So you can I invite you to bring somebody to mind you would like to practice with. It can be anyone, including yourself. It could be a person which is suffering. It could be a difficult person in your life. Most likely they are also suffering in some way. And take somebody you would like to practice with, and also be mindful of your window of tolerance. It doesn't need to be the most difficult person of your life. And bring this being to mind, and I invite you to feel how it is to be them. You can imagine a specific situation where you interacted with them. And try to feel as much as possible, or as much as available to you right now, what it is to be them. And reflect on the causes and conditions leading to this person being them in this moment. And now, if this person is not you, you can imagine that situation where you're also in a similar situation to the being you're practicing on now. This might allow you to soften your heart somewhat. And show that we might not even be that different or distinct. And now I invite you to think of other beings which are in a similar situation. Suffering is universal, so you or that being is probably in good company. And if it's available to you, you may also reflect on situations with similar but much stronger suffering to them. This helps to calibrate, particularly also if you took yourself as meditation object now for your compassion practice. So many beings part of the fellowship of that particular suffering. And now having felt how it might be for this person, how maybe also you were in a similar situation, and how pervasive this suffering is, from this let the wish of compassion arise. Let the strong wish for their suffering to end arise and hold that wish. That's compassion. It might arise naturally by seeing suffering. We usually want this suffering to end. Let the wish arise for this suffering to end. And now imagine what needs to change for this suffering to end. Could be that some basic needs of this person are met. Or if the person has some injury or illness, that injury or illness goes away. Imagine what would need to change for that to end. Or you might go deeper. Maybe their suffering is not so much connected to the broken leg, but to attaching to some activities they can do better if their leg is not broken. And so the wish might become for them to be free of that attachment. Or ultimately, you might wish for their awakening, for their total freedom of suffering. That they can find a stable place in themselves. And now really wish that all the causes and conditions come together for this to happen, that this person may be free of suffering. And you may well extend this wish to everyone who has that kind of suffering. May they be well. May they be well. There is some way out, so yeah. I invite you to extend this wish fiercely for their well-being. May the causes and conditions happen so that this person, these people may be well. And we conclude this practice by sharing the merit. So may this practice benefit those beings. May this practice benefit all beings in that suffering. Or you can also extend it to all beings. May this practice benefit all beings. Not just practicing for ourselves, but by training our minds, we really can benefit others. So may this practice benefit all beings. can imagine those ripples of your practice go out to all beings. In ways we understand, in ways we maybe don't understand. May all beings be well. Okay. Now we are slowly closing, ending the meditation session. Take your time, no rush. Feel free to take a minute to come back to the room and end the meditation session the way which works for you. If you want, feel free to stretch, move, drink something.